Hi, my name's Drew Beeson, and welcome to Cracking the Zodiac Part 2. When we left off at Part 1, I had started talking about some of the handwriting comparisons between Don Chaney and the Zodiac, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that here shortly, and also want to discuss a couple of the other suspects that people were sending me a lot of messages about on the first part of this series. But this is mainly going to focus on the handwriting comparison between Don Chaney and the Zodiac. And the sample of the Don Chaney handwriting comes from a letter that he sent to Tom Voight back in 2002 when Tom inquired to Don about Arthur Lee Allen. Of course, that's the suspect that Don brought forward as the Zodiac. And it's regarding when Arthur Lee Allen worked at a Vallejo hospital and was an orderly or something like that. And the patient died somewhat mysteriously. And Don's kind of explaining that here in the letter, and I'll put that up real quick and I'll read it. It says, Tom, in reference to the dialysis death, Leigh injected insulin into the tubing connecting his victim to the dialysis machine. His syringe would not have been seen as a weapon. That's all it says, and I know they investigated that incident. There was no foul play, but you can see where Don's still trying to lay that on Arthur Lee Allen. Okay, I want to show the first comparison of handwriting between the Zodiac and Don Chaney, and I'm going to do this on the computer screen so I can use the pointer. But here you can see the word had, and this was written in one of the Zodiac letters by the Zodiac, of course. You see his H, it looks like a number 17. You have this up and down mark here, and then this part coming off of the H looks like the number 17. When you go down and look at this word seen, that came in the letter that Don Chaney wrote to Tom Voight, you can see the N in seen looks like a number 17. You have one mark and then a separate mark making what looks like a 7. And then again down here you have the word been, also in the same Don Chaney letter to Tom. And you see the N looks like a 17. Compared back up to the Zodiac H. If you just take off that little top part, they look identical. Then you go down to the word North Bay, written by the Zodiac. You have the N here, still looks like a 17. 17 on Don's letter, 17 on Don's letter, and then also similar, also Zodiac up top, which matches the one he did at the bottom. And then you have the H in North Bay. There you have 17 again, 17 Don, 17. Then you go down here, you see Zodiac, the word shirt. Kind of a really quick R here, and then again you see the 17 that it makes when he does an H. Zodiac. Murderer, same thing. You see these R's that kind of look like V's. And then I'll go back up to Don's R, looks like a V. And then there's another one, 4A, there's another R that looks like a V, that's Zodiac. And then another one, I just found this today. This is where Don Chaney wrote the word reference in the letter to Tom, and you see this strange looking F with this, it looks like a candy cane with this large overhang here. And I thought, what does that look similar to? And then I went back to the Brian Hartnell's car door from the Lake Berryessa attack when the Zodiac wrote his crimes on here with the dates, and you see here where he wrote by knife. Look at that F with the large tall overhang, sort of looks like a candy cane. And then back up to the F in Don's reference, the tall overhang. So those are just some of the comparisons I've seen between Don Chaney's handwriting and the Zodiac, and there's a lot. You can't deny them. Okay, so there you had just some of the a few of the examples of Don Chaney's handwriting versus the Zodiac, which I think is one of the best matches there are. I will say that Tom Voight, when that letter was sent to him, he did send that to the police, and they agreed that there was some striking similarities between the Zodiac's handwriting and Don's. So, at least according to Tom, they did take a DNA sample from Don Chaney. It didn't match to what they had, and what I understand they have is some sort of really light DNA from some of the early Zodiac letters, but I'm not really sure, and no one's ever tested positive for it, but That's what Tom said, and I know that Detective Bauer that inherited the case later on, when he's asked if they ever tested Don's DNA, he really wasn't sure. He said he thought they had. It's really unclear. If if anybody knows that for a fact, you can definitely leave a comment, because I haven't found where that's totally a proven fact. We do know that Don Chaney was the one claiming that he had to lick the stamps of Arthur Lee Allen, so as if he was scared when the advent of DNA came around that he might be linked up to some of the letters. So that was always kind of suspicious. But that being said, going back to all of Don Chaney's claims against Arthur Lee Allen, really all came, at least as he tells the story, in one day, which was New Year's Day of 1968. And of course, that would have been just about 12 or so short days after the first murders on Lake Herman Road. And that's when Don says he saw Arthur Lee Allen's Zodiac watch that he either got for Christmas or his birthday. Arthur Lee Allen's birthday was December 20th. So I don't know if it was totally clear if he got that watch for his birthday or Christmas, but Don tells everything that says that he heard from Lee Allen, including, picking off the little darlings as they come bouncing off the school bus. He heard that comment that day. He also heard that, Lee Allen read this certain book, and that's where he got the idea. It was called the ABC Murders. So the main point being is that Don's recollections of everything that Lee Allen told him, that's leading him to come to the police saying, "I think my friend's a Zodiac," pretty much all happened in one day. All these recollections he's saying are almost happened in the same day, where he said, "I want to be a killer. I want to call myself the Zodiac." This is when Don Chaney says he was licking stamps for Arthur Lee Allen for, I guess, thank you notes for Christmas or something like that. I mean, how many gifts is a guy going to get? I mean, he lived with his mother still. He sees his brother quite a bit, so there's two eliminated. How many gifts did the guy supposedly get for Christmas that he's got to write thank you letters for to have his buddy licking the stamps? I'm just saying it's all really convenient, and it's just more things that point to the suspicions of Don Chaney. So with all that being said about Don, I want to go over a couple suspects that I'm asked about quite a bit. And in the next video, I'm going to cover all the suspects in detail. But I want to start now with one of them, which is Mr. Ross Sullivan. He was brought forward as a Zodiac suspect, I think probably 10 years ago or so. Maybe not that long, but I think when people first saw pictures of him, they immediately latched on to how much he looked like the original Zodiac sketch that was derived from the three teenagers that saw the Zodiac at the Paul Stein shooting from across the street. They were 50 or 60 feet away, and gave a description that the police composite was made by Officer Donald Folk. Also saw the Zodiac near the Presidio the night of the Paul Stein shooting, and he was not part of that original sketch. I don't know why. They did show it to him and ask him if he agreed with it, and he said, "Yeah, that looks pretty close, although the man I saw was a little bit older and a little bit heavier." So, take it for what it's worth. I know that Detective Tashi thought that sketch was really useless because it resembled so many people, but then again, it does look like Ross Sullivan when you just look at the face. Now, people that do like him as a suspect have to realize that no one had any of the Zodiac sightings had the suspect being as big as Mr. Sullivan is. He was 6'2" and 300 pounds, and I've seen some people that like him as a suspect try to claim he was like 240. That's not true, because there was a newspaper article about him from Riverside where he was having exhibiting bizarre behavior, and they noted that he was 6'2" and 300 pounds, and that was in 1967, right before the Zodiac murder. So I'm doubting he lost 60 pounds between then. So pretty big guy. I mean, just for comparison, Donald Trump is 6'3" and 239. Now this guy is an inch shorter, but about 60 pounds heavier than Trump. So he's a pretty big guy. I don't know how anyone's going to miss that. And if you like him as a suspect, that's a problem. I've seen people try to defend it all day long. You have to realize that's difficult, because people had him at 5'8". I know Mike Migaud, Joe saw him, and he thought he was around 5'8". I think Officer Folk had him around 5'10". The teenagers at the Presidio at the Paul Stein shooting had him at about 5'9". Of course, they were 50, 60 feet away, so no one had him at 6'2" or being that big. None of them did. I think Cecilia Shepard said he was an inch taller before she passed away from being stabbed at Lake Berryessa. Said he was about an inch taller than the detective interviewing her, which would have put him at about 5'10", maybe 5'11". So that's a problem if he's your suspect. He's a big guy. It's just kind of hard to miss. No one ever had him being that big. And also, he would have been 27 years old at the time of the Lake Herman Road killings. It's pretty young. A lot of people had the Zodiac being a little older. And I know a lot of people like him as a suspect, and I think he might be the murderer of Cherry Joe Bates at Riverside. Because I don't think the Zodiac did do the Riverside killing. I really don't. I think that's separate. And I also don't think the Zodiac was involved with the Kathleen Johns incident where he picked her up and she got away and then went and identified a picture of the Zodiac. I just don't think he was responsible for either of those two, and I'll explain that more in the next video. But those are just some thoughts on Ross Sullivan. And also, as I talk about in the first video, he was listed as a librarian as his occupation, and I saw his death certificate where it said his last occupation was a dishwasher. And like I said in the first video, I think the Zodiac was a pretty smart guy. I mean, I know they said Ross Sullivan had a couple classes in cryptograms, but would he really have been able to do what the Zodiac did with all those complex ciphers, knowing what radians are, the bus bomb diagrams? And yet this guy was a lot. I'm not knocking librarians, but that was something he did earlier. His last occupation was a dishwasher. I mean, if he was that intelligent, I know he had some mental problems, but he had to have been somewhat functional to be able to do what the Zodiac did. First, he never got caught. He did a lot of complex letters taunting the police and was never apprehended, which also takes me back a little bit to Arthur Lee Allen. If people believe that he's the suspect, then why would he tell even his friend everything he was going to do? The Zodiac, you can tell if you take him as a separate entity of how he taunted the police with the ciphers and not getting caught. He's a pretty smart guy, and the things he wrote with the bus bomb, all that taken into consideration, pretty intelligent guy. If that was Arthur Lee Allen, why is he clearly telling his friend everything he's going to do? You'd have to trust somebody just with your whole life to do that. Maybe the two were in cahoots together. I don't think they were, but that's one possibility. And then you go back to the Ralph Spinelli deal, where Ralph was this mafia type character and says that Arthur Lee Allen came to him in one of his nightclubs and said, "Hey, I want to work for you. I will do some contract killings for you," or something like that. And then Ralph Spinelli said, "Hey, go away." He goes, "Well, I'm going to prove to you that I'm telling you the truth, that I can kill." So then the Paul Stein shooting happens, and then he goes back to Spinelli and says, "See, do you believe me now?" And Spinelli says, "Oh yeah, I believe you. Now get out of here." Now, would the Zodiac really do that? He's trying not to get caught, but yet he's going to tell Don Chaney everything he's going to do, how he wants to be called the Zodiac and get paid to be a crime guy, and then he's going to go tell the mafia guy that he had a bad incident with back in the late 50s that, "Hey, I'll go do contract killings for you." Does that really sound like the same guy, Zodiac or Arthur Lee Allen, that supposedly did those things? No. That's another reason why I don't think it was Arthur Lee Allen. So anyway, going back to Mr. Sullivan, I just don't think he would have had the capacity to do what the Zodiac did. I just don't. Other than his size being an issue, I don't see him having the ability to have done that. Just from having a few cryptogram classes, he's going to be able to pull off these murders and not get caught. And I know a lot of people said he's had a lot of psychological problems. So did Larry Kane, by the way, from a car wreck injury. I think the Zodiac was definitely sick in the fact that he murdered, but he was also pretty highly functional, that for the most part did these murders and went back to somewhat of a normal life undetected. I don't think a guy like Sullivan, if he did it, could have gotten away with that. I just don't. So going back real quick to a comment that Officer Folk made in the His Name is Arthur Lee Allen video. He said that when Detective Bauer showed him a suspect lineup that included photos of Arthur Lee Allen, and he kind of hinted to him that, "I think this could be our guy," Officer Folk looked at Allen and said, "There's no way it could be this guy. This guy seems like he outweighed the person I saw that night by about 100 pounds. And we know at the time that Arthur Lee Allen weighed about 250 according to his driver's license. So if that's the case, and I know folk probably overshot that a little bit, but if Allen looked like he outweighed the suspect by that much at 250, then what would Ross Sullivan been at 300 pounds? It's just another piece that just leans heavily against Sullivan as being the suspect. So that brings me to the next suspect I want to talk about, which is Donald Harden. And I know a lot of people just immediately write him off. I don't. Donald Harden did solve the first Zodiac cipher, and that would put him immediately on the map as a suspect, and he probably knew that. So why would, in his right mind, would he just say, hey, here I am? The police couldn't solve it. Donald Harden winds up solving it, sends it in, and sends all his worksheets in with it and says, here I am, I solved it. So he had to have known if he did that. With any, by all accounts, he's a pretty smart guy. He proved it by solving that. He was a school teacher, but he knows that's immediately going to make him a suspect, and it did. I'm sure they definitely did a good cursory look at him, which means he's going to get searched. If they found any of the gun that was involved in the murders, anything that could have connected him to him, he's going to know it's going to happen right then and there. His wife, of course, that helped him come up with the solution for the first cipher, she provided him an alibi for all the murders, and I know she had some mental problems, but she was really obsessed with it and wanted to get it solved. And I just don't see Donald Harden being the Zodiac, and I'll get into it more later, but he didn't really match any of the witness descriptions. I mean, you could tell by pictures of him, he's definitely not stocky or barrel-chested. I know Mike Mijo said Zodiac was stocky. I think Officer Folk said barrel-chested. Somebody else said stocky. I think that's what the teenager, the Presidio, described him as. Brian Hartnell said, I know he made the comment, he said it seemed like a walrus, like, stockier type guy, but maybe his clothing could have made him seem a little more like that. Just Harden, really, I mean, if he turned out to be the Zodiac, would be the craziest thing that's ever happened, because by all accounts, this guy was just really kind of mild-mannered, intelligent, but it just really is a stretch. It just is. I think that's why a lot of people just immediately rule him out. I wouldn't. I think he still deserves to be a suspect, just in terms of the fact he solved the first cipher. But that's all I have for now. Please like and subscribe. Definitely going to be digging into all the suspects a lot more in detail and have something else coming out hopefully in a couple weeks. Thanks for watching.